Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed Podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I'm joined by the light-skinned wonder himself, Mr. Oh No, it's the Popo. What's up, Brody?
It's refreshing to hear you do the intro again. Because listen, I tried to do it last week. It took me about 5 tries. I was like, my yo wasn't coming in right. I was like, yo. I'm glad to have you back, brother.
You did
glad
good.
To have you back.
You did good, brother. I got to admit, I listened to it. I was like, okay, AJ. I was like,
he said a word wrong though.
he said a word, but I didn't hold it against him.
You said talk about law enforcement and the police instead of like law enforcement and the community.
Dang. And that took me a few tries. I ain't even gonna lie. That took me because I was like, that didn't sound right, and then I just recorded it. But
oh, that's too funny, man.
That's why we got Ryan.
Billy's with us as well, man. So good to see you, Billy.
You too. Welcome back.
And thanks to all of our listeners for bearing with us for not having an episode last week. I mean, we had one, and so shout out to AJ, but not having the traditional one that we usually have. As most of you guys know, if you guys follow anything, my father-in-law passed away last Saturday. So not this Saturday, not the Saturday just passed, but the one before that. And it was definitely tragic. We weren't expecting it. And, it's just one of those. I was golfing with him 4 weeks ago. So I was telling a lot of people that he wasn't just my father-in-law. A lot of people sometimes will say, oh, man, I hate my in-laws. Like, I wasn't one of those people. I love my in-laws. I had really, really good in-laws. Thankful for them. And my father-in-law wasn't just a father-in-law. He was a friend of mine. So every time when I was sneaking out of the studio after a podcast or whatever, or I'm trying to push it back or make it earlier, it's because I was usually out playing golf with him. So he meant something to me. And not only just on that level, but just on the spiritual level too. He helped me become the spiritual man that I am today for my wife, for my kids, and just as a servant of God. So I tell people I had 2 fathers, and both of them were amazing, and he was one of them. So yeah, it was a tough loss, but thank you guys for all of your patience, your prayers, your condolences. A lot of you guys have reached out to me. Some of you guys have donated. So to all of you guys, we really, really, truly appreciate that. So thank you guys. And thank you to AJ and Billy. You guys truly are my brothers, man. Like, blood couldn't make us any closer. Seriously, and I mean that. So
yeah,
thanks, fellas.
Absolutely, man. And just, I don't want to skim over this, but is the GoFundMe still up?
The GoFundMe still is up. We are almost at our goal. We, I think, on the GoFundMe page are at 11,000 something, and our goal is $15,000. So we're a little less than $4,000 away. And what that's for, guys, and I want you guys to know this. I think we're all family here. Everybody listens to this podcast. After my father-in-law's passing, it definitely left a financial burden for his wife, which is my mother-in-law. And sometimes, we don't prepare the best when it comes to life or our death, just because we're so caught up in living our life to the fullest. And that's what he did. From traveling, we all went to Disney World together. We all spent so much time together as a family, just doing different things. And, you don't always think about the time that you're going to die. And so his passing was unexpected, and, she's supposed to go back to work next week, actually. And so it's just too short. So we're trying to do whatever we can to raise a decent amount of money, so that way we can prevent her from having to go back to work that quickly, and then try to get all the financial affairs and everything like that in order, so that way she doesn't have to stress about it. So that's what the GoFundMe's for.
How can they find the GoFundMe?
So you can go on to actually GoFundMe and just type in, I think it's Edwin Regay, so EDWIN and then RAGAY. That was his name. And it might come up for Ryan Tillman too, but if not, shoot me a DM and let me know. And then today I'm going to repost the link on our...
it's in your bio too, in your Linktree bio on Instagram.
So it is on my Linktree bio. That's probably the easiest, actually. Go on to my Breaking Barriers United page on Instagram and just go to my bio. And you guys can find it that way as well. Make it very, very simple. And again, I don't typically ask people for money, but this is one of those where I'm like, it's not for me. It's for something. It's for my mother-in-law, and I want to make sure that she doesn't have to struggle. So with that being said, though, I appreciate all you guys, truly, truly. And that kind of leads me into a quick point. Today's going to be a shorter episode because AJ has to get to work. I was late because I had to get my kids to school because the wife is, taking care of mom. And but I got a message last night in our DM, and I wanted to read it. But before I read it, I want to talk about. I did a keynote presentation for about probably like 500 attorneys in the state of California the other day. I did it virtually, and the whole conversation was the why. And one of the things I focused on during that was why we do what we do. And so I don't know if you guys have ever read this book called The Dash. Have you guys ever heard of the book The Dash?
Sounds familiar, but I haven't read it.
Have you, AJ?
I have. Isn't that a Dakota Myers thing?
That might be his foundation or something. That sounds familiar. Maybe that's where I know it from.
Yeah, I don't know, and I'll read it, man. Matter of fact, I'll pull it up here in a minute. But I actually, it's a poem. So The Dash is a poem, and they refer to the dash as the little mark in between your birthday and your death date, and your life is a reflection of what your dash is. And so, when you read the poem, it talks about, what is your dash going to be for the world? Like that's what we all see. And so, when I talked about the why, and I was thinking about my father-in-law and everything like that, like his dash was his dash was, his family. His dash was his relationship with Christ. His dash was being a good example. Like he left a good dash. And so, when I received this message on IG last night from my man Brandon, it really, really inspired me, even through the chaotic storm we've all been going through in this world. And I think it's going to inspire AJ and Billy right now. But I say this because I wanted to inspire you. So I'm going to read it, and then we'll kind of let this lead the conversation. But it says, "Hey, bro, I just want to first say I'm a huge fan of the show. You and AJ, man, are two goats. I have been trying to switch careers. Billy's in there too. He just said He said, I've been trying to switch careers from being a personal trainer to becoming a police officer since the end of 2019. It has been a difficult process, as you know, on top of all the issues that 2020 brought on society/law enforcement. I was stuck delivering for Amazon because the gyms closed and I couldn't train my clients for months. It was so stressful, and listening to your podcast every day on those long days delivering packages got me through those tough times. I learned so much from y'all and really helped me with my interviews and how to conduct myself once I'm hired. And it was great hearing two Christian men of color in policing. To make a long story short, I got hired at my dream agency this month and was a number one candidate out of 400. Thank y'all for everything. God bless. And so that really made my day, just because I think we've talked about this before. Sometimes it's like, it almost feels like monotonous when we come in here, we do our podcast, and then you go and start your day. And then he just reminded me of why. Not only did he get hired at his dream agency, but he was number one out of 400 people. And how many times have me, AJ, or Billy talked about motivating yourself, driving yourself? That person took what we had to say to heart, and everything we say is not because it's not just lip service. These are things that me and AJ and Billy pride ourselves on day to day. And I can vouch for both of these brothers because I see their lifestyle, I see what they do. And so, Brandon, you made my day, man. You definitely uplifted my spirit, and you definitely continue to motivate me to do what I do, as I'm sure you do for AJ and Billy. And so, did you have anything on that AJ or Billy? Because I thought that was really, really cool and a really good launching point for today.
So I was riding with a somewhat newer officer yesterday because Jones took the day off, which was traumatic for me because, I'm lost without Jones at work. But I hopped on with a newer officer, and we're riding around, and, of course I'm driving. And, I'm hitting my normal rounds, right? I stopped by the high school. I'm talking to the kids at the high school, the teachers, the parents at the high school. Then I'm going to like the places where some of the students go to fight after the high school, and I'm making sure my presence is there. Then I'm hitting the rec centers. Then I'm hitting like different families. Then I'm just hitting like high traffic areas where, there might be like known drug dealers on the corners and, doing my whole thing. And, I pulled up to a pretty bad area on the south side where I work. And one of the individuals who were standing at the corner walks up to me, and in front of all of his friends, known drug dealers, known gangbangers, he goes, "Yo, what's up, Officer Johnson?" Daps me up, gives me a hug. He's like, "How's the family doing?" I'm like, "They're doing good." I ask him how his family's doing. He's like, "They're doing all right too." I tell him, I say, "Hey, be safe." He goes, "Absolutely, I love you. You be safe too." And we pull off. And she goes, wow, that was different. And that led into this exact conversation. I was like, look, like I've been doing this for 9 years. Like when I first started, like he was a kid. And I would just stop by, and like they would like always go to the corner store with me, or the little market down the street, and I would give them like dollars so they could get like snacks and whatnot. And now they're grown. So for me, it's like it's a double whammy, right? So on one hand, I'm like, man, this is like cool. Because we're starting to see the fruit, right? Like we've tilled the ground, you know, we dug the hole, we planted the seed, we watered it, and it like wouldn't sprout, and then we had to like put more soil on top of it, and you know that was a journey, and it stormed, and we're like, the storm sucks, then it sprouted, and then we had to trim stuff off of it, and now you know the tree is like bearing fruit, and it's like cool to see that, and we get to enjoy the fruit. But at the same time, I'm like, man, I'm old. I'm like, I'm getting old a little.
Bro. Oh, you ain't never lying about that, bro. I'm telling you, every day I wake up, bro, I'm not feeling like, you know, Mr. Marathon Billy over here. I'm feeling like I'm about to.
Billy is killing it in his Crocs.
Man. Yes, he is.
Run into my Crocs.
Yes, he is.
AJ, that's kind of amazing. For some reason, that's never clicked in my brain, where there are a lot of kids who have grown up in that neighborhood that you weren't just, oh yeah, one cop talked to me that day and he was a jerk. Like, you're a part of his childhood. Like, he knows your name. He knows he sees you often, and it was over the course of a matter of years. Like, who knows the impact you can have on people like that? Like, that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Like, you're a part of his life. You're not just a cop in his city. You are a part of his life.
And I think sometimes
Absolutely.
people are expecting microwave results, and you can't expect microwave results. You can't expect it to be like a hot pocket where it's ready in 2 minutes. Like, you got to marinate this. You got to prove
you care.
Yes, exactly. You got to take your time. Yeah. You got to, you know, be in the neighborhood every day, and you may not even, and sometimes you may not even see the results. And sometimes sometimes you, depending on where life will move you, you may move on to something else and not even know that that person that you've been investing in and pouring into for years may have went on and done something great and never even know about it. But you have to have faith to know that you're leaving seeds, and at some point in time they got to be watered, or somebody else may water them and they'll sprout into the plant that they're going to be.
Yeah, consistency definitely matters, and it is cool because that's what, you know, that conversation eventually led into, is like, you know, as law enforcement officers, like we want instant results, and we're somewhat used to it, not just because of our profession, but because of the world that we live in, right? Like, I could pick my phone up and I have instant results right there, right? And that's kind of like just, you know, created this mindset. But even as law enforcement officers, like, we oftentimes create instant results, right? Like, okay, you did this, you're going to jail, instant result. You're getting a ticket, instant result. I'm going to remove you from this store or from this building, instant result. And that mindset can't be brought into the realm of changing lives, or like changing the light in which is shine on our profession. Like, that takes longevity and like time and time and time and time. But the cool thing is once you do it for so long, like, those dominoes fall far and wide, you know, because like I said, he did this in the middle of one of the most dangerous intersections on my precinct. And I work one of the higher end crime precincts. And he like gives me a hug. He asked me, you know, how's your family doing? I'm talking to him like we're brothers. And then at the end, out loud in front of everybody, he goes, hey, you be safe too. I love you. Man, and it's just like, who knows what that did to the other people who were standing on the corner, or the people who were sitting on the porch watching us interact, who may have had like a negative mindset when it came to police officers. You know, I could have got out the car and they could have been like, oh, here go these white cops harassing these young black men. And then we get out, we hug each other. Now they're like, oh, hold on, I was wrong. Yeah. They clearly know each other. So
it's compound interest. And that's what people like. It takes one person. And Billy, I'm sure Billy's seen it, because Billy manages my social media account. But there's been times, it's so far, I was just telling this to somebody yesterday, is that, you know, since we've been really consistent on social media, you start to develop relationships with people that you don't even know, you never even met in person. And certain people have been following us from day one. And some of these guys, I think I've said this before, have been some of our biggest naysayers. Like, always got something to say, always. Yeah. But over time, without me even realizing it, we start to develop a relationship because we go back and forth. And so I've had people send me messages, some of these naysayers, and tell me like, man, Ryan, like, we may not always agree, but I got to tell you, you've changed my mindset on a lot of things when it comes to law enforcement. So much so that I take heat from people in my own community now, because when I see a video, I understand that there's probably more to it, and I'll say that, and they'll beat me up about it. And so that's kind of what we're talking about. Is this all took time? They didn't just see my first video and was like, oh, you know what? I think I'll like police now. No, like it took time. It took, effort. It took me being honest, even when it's hard to be honest sometimes. I think I just posted a video like 4 days ago where the U.S. Marshal punched the suspect in the face that was handcuffed. Yeah. And it was wrong. It was wrong. And don't get me wrong, like the context behind it, and I talked about this last night on another podcast, the context behind it was these officers, these U.S. Marshals, were chasing down these suspects that were wanted for killing a 5-year-old child in a random act of violence. They went to go they did a drive-by, and in the commission of doing that drive-by, they ended up shooting a 5-year-old child and killing him. So they were on the manhunt looking for these guys. They take these suspects into custody who are wanted for the murder. And so the U.S. Marshal gets upset and punches the handcuffed suspect in the face. It was wrong. I mean, there's no excuse about it. It was wrong. But I think a lot of times people forget that as officers, we're still human beings, and we still get emotional about things. And so that's why I say, we are held to a higher standard. We should be held to a higher standard. But I think it's important for people to know that context, because it changes your heart a little bit. You still know that the acts of him punching that suspect in the face were wrong, but it also changes your heart to know that, he was mad because this guy just took an innocent 5-year-old's life and he was having a human moment. And sometimes people forget we're human. And AJ's wearing a shirt right now that says humanize. And that word is so important, because I think oftentimes we forget that police officers are human beings just like everybody else. And so I think it's so important for us to remember those things and remember why it's so important to be consistent in what we're doing with the community in every single day of our lives, so that way we can bridge this divide.
And it's powerful that you put that video out, because I think like World Star, like one of the pages like that, initially put that video out like a week or so ago. And in the caption, they put that, U.S. Marshals punch man accused of killing 5-year-old in drive-by or something like that. And I'm like, well, let me see what these comments are like. And an overwhelming majority of the comments were like, oh, he got what he deserved. I'd have smacked him too. The officer should have stomped him out. But kudos to you for not riding that wave of knowing what the officer did was wrong and being like, well, the people support it, so I'm going to support it. Like, instead, you were like, no, like, even though, the people want to justify this, like, it's still wrong at the end of the day. And like, we need to address that. And that's who we need to be, like, as a whole in our profession, because those are the same people that we hate or dislike in positions of power, like politicians, right? Like, that's what politicians do, is they have a hard stance, but I'll put hard stance in air quotes about one thing. But then when the people start saying something else, they ride that wave like, oh yeah, well, we'll do this. So when Ryan held steadfast, like, hey, no, what the officer did was wrong, despite how all of you may feel about this, like what the officer did was wrong. Like, that's the mindset that we all need. And if we do that for an extended period of time, or for a decent amount of time, then you'll start to see the fruits of us doing that. And then you'll start to see like people's attitudes towards the profession change, because they know that we aren't going to waver based off of people's opinions.
Yeah. And it needs to be that way, because their responses, although we all feel that from a humanistic standpoint as being right and justified, their responses were still emotional driven. Yes. And a lot of times those same people that were saying kudos to that officer, the same people that crucify officers, where they see officers do something that looks bad but's justified, they have that same emotional response. And so that's why I choose to stand firm in calling out what's right and calling out what's wrong based on the facts, because that's the only way we're going to be able to have consistency when judging law enforcement use of force, or whether or not it's right or wrong. We can't say, oh yeah, because of his actions in this one, the officer's actions were okay. Like, no, it's still wrong. Now, I don't think he should be punished to the same level as somebody else that, some people say, oh, he should go to jail and stuff like that. No. Let's still look at things with a fine-tooth comb and bring context to the situation, but it doesn't negate the fact that he was wrong. And so I really want to transition really briefly before, because like I said, this is going to be a short episode, but I got a message. I got to be careful with reading this message too, because I don't want to get my man into trouble. But there was an officer in another state who sent me a DM, and pretty disturbing actually when I read it. And but I'm thankful that he was able to send this to me, and in his mind he was like, man, I just need a vent. I need a vent real quick. So I want you guys to realize context. This is an officer, current officer for a police department in the United States of America. Sometimes as officers, we think that our profession could do no wrong. And I have to remind you that we can do wrong, and we do wrong, not as much as people like to say we do, but we do, and we have to be able to acknowledge that. Just like the medical industry, which I'm not going to go into right now, but I am very upset with certain things in the medical industry after going through what I went through with my father-in-law. But that's a story for a different day. So this is his message. I got to make sure I don't read no names, but we'll talk about it. So it says, bro, I got pulled over in my unmarked police car and got accused of being involved with stealing a car and accused of stealing the car I was in. I told the officer I was a cop from the jump, but he told me he didn't believe me because people say that to him all the time. My police radio was going on and everything, and dude didn't put two and two together. Anyway, man, I'm filing a complaint and all that, but dang, I still can't drive while being brown, even if it's a cop car. Appreciate the podcast and the positivity from your crew for sure. We still got some people in this profession that don't deserve to be in it. And then he said the dude was super rude the whole time. So disappointing. Happened in front of the family too. How are we supposed to defend our profession when we still have police officers like this? I don't know, bro. I've been in the profession for 17 years and never been mistreated like this before. My fault, I guess I'm venting, but and then he said condolences. But then just to give you guys a little bit of context to this, he said, appreciate you listening. I wanted to post a rant, but I didn't because I didn't want to feed the anti-cop rhetoric and fuel the fire. But he said he's taking care of the process. And he said, anyways, he got into his car to leave. He said, just to give you context, I had parked in front of a house that had a stolen car in the driveway. I had stopped at my aunt's house because she had passed away. So my family was getting together to eat and all that. You know how Samoans do. And because he's Samoan, he said, I seen an officer down the street and mentioned it to my family. My family loves cops, so they started making barbecue plates for the officer, for that officer. Anyway, I got into my car to leave and pull up to the officer, and before I tell them my family is making them food, so the officer pulls him over, and before I can tell him that my family is making food, an officer comes up behind me and pulls me over. I thought it was a joke. The officer comes to the window and is interrogation mode big time, even after I told him I was a police officer and I was driving a police car. He for real asked me where I got the car and accused me of coming from a home that had a stolen car in the driveway. All bad, man. Anyway, it was a missed opportunity to meet my man. It was a missed opportunity by him to meet my family, and instead yelled at, I can't remember, I can't see the last. And my awesome family, and instead yelled at them and stopped me without PC. So I guess he yelled at the family, stopped me without PC or reasonable suspicion, and were just unprofessional. So this is not the first time I've heard a story like that. I've heard other friends of mine that tell me that they've been pulled over while they're in uniform and accused of stealing a police car and stuff like that. I've heard it before. And some of the guys that told me this have been prominent people in positions of power, like deputy chiefs, things like that. So I will play devil's advocate, but I'm only playing devil's advocate to get rid of any excuses that people may have. So some people may say, oh, well, the officer was doing his job. There's a stolen vehicle in the area. He has a job to do and he has to be safe. Okay, I get it. We all have jobs to do. But to remove that devil's advocate excuse, I'm also going to say is like, you can still do your job and be respectful to people and be kind to people without having to be rude.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we miss the mark sometimes. We don't know how to do our job sometimes without being disrespectful, and that's what we need to fix. I can't tell you how many times I've done a high-risk traffic stop. I've done some high-risk situations, and I've still been able to maintain my composure and be respectful in the event that I am out with the wrong person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so just by treating people right. And so I think, we get caught up in being emotional like that U.S. Marshal did. And next thing you know, your emotions got the best of you and you treated somebody wrong who was the wrong person. And so I told that officer that reached out to me, I was like, it's crazy because he treated you like that. So how does he treat other members of the public who wouldn't get off because they have a badge and a gun? How would he treat those people? And that's what's scary to me.
This is my thing. And I've probably said it on the podcast before, but I know I preach it almost every day to like officers in person and via social media. You need to be the same person you are with and without that badge. Like if you wouldn't have that energy without that uniform, without that gun, then you shouldn't have that energy with that uniform and with that gun. And that causes so much friction. I'll just say between like minorities and people who live in the inner city, because a lot of times what happens is officers from other areas get on police agencies or police departments, and they want to work the inner city because they want to run a gun, they want to get the dope, they want to get the bad guys, they want to chase cars, kicking doors, all that. And they tend to forget that like these are like people that live in these neighborhoods, and that the criminals that you so desperately want to chase and arrest are a very, very small population of the area in which you patrol. And keep in mind, like I work for the 14th largest department in the country. I've talked to officers at NYPD, LAPD, Chicago. I just talked to Chicago police officers this past weekend regarding the same thing. And it's like, this is universal, right? Like the group of people that you so desperately want to lock up, which is good, right? Like you should want to take away the evil in these neighborhoods, but you need to remember that they're a very small population of the area in which you patrol. And we get so blindsided that we just look at everybody as a criminal, everybody as a suspect. And I've wrestled and fought with people in uniform, and as soon as the handcuffs are on, we're best friends.
Yeah.
Hey man, you good? You need some water? Like I'm not holding a grudge. Like at the end of the day, like it's not my job to hold a grudge. Like I'm going to do my job. I'm going to arrest you. I'm going to take you to court. I'm going to let the court systems do what they do. I'm not going to get emotionally involved in whether you get convicted or not. Like, would I prefer that you get convicted in most circumstances? Absolutely. But we get so wrapped up in law enforcement being our identity that everything matters, Oh my goodness, I can't believe the prosecutor said this. I can't believe the judge did this. I can't believe the community members like feel this way about the arrest. Like at the end of the day, like this is your job. That this is not your identity. Like, and when we blur those lines, like these are the results. And there are clearly a lot of people who feel negatively about our profession. And when you introduce this behavior, it makes it worse. It makes it worse. I've had people, I went on a knife run earlier this week, a woman swinging a knife at another person. I show up, I get out the car. Granted, I got my gun out, right? It's at low ready, but I'm talking to her like we're best friends. I'm like, hey ma'am, how you doing? She's like, I'm good. And I'm like, hey, somebody just called the police and said you had a knife. Like, you wouldn't mind if we check, right? Like, we just want to make sure that we're safe. I'm not like, get on the effing ground, blah, blah, blah. Like, nah, like those days are gone. Like, and you know what happened at the end of the day? She let me search her backpack. Like there was no resistance whatsoever. Her dude ended up coming out like, whoa, what's going on? I treated him the same way. He was on 10. It's like, we could be so much more productive and we could do so much more good. And we could get so much more information to arrest the bad guys or girls in which you want to arrest by being nice, by treating people like humans.
Exactly. And let me, so some people are going to probably listen to this and say, well, how do you do that? Because of the job we do. You have to prepare yourself for that before you get to that situation. I'm doing a Bible study right now, and we're going through a book called Detours by Tony Evans. And it's a phenomenal book. I encourage you guys to read it. But you know, you got to look at yourself like a sponge. So think about a sponge. If I were to dip a sponge in Kool-Aid, what's it going to soak up? Kool-Aid. So when I squeeze that sponge, what's going to come out? Kool-Aid. If I were to dip a sponge in alcohol, when I squeeze that sponge, what's going to come out? Alcohol. So we have to think of ourselves as being a sponge, and what goes in is what's going to come out when your back is up against the wall and when you're being pressured and when you're being squeezed. And so if you're filling your mind with all this negativity that you see on social media, if you're filling your mind with all the anti-police rhetoric stuff out there, when you get squeezed and your back is up against the wall, what do you think is going to come out of you? All of that nasty, negative stuff. And so the way I kind of take and challenge life sometimes is, what am I filling myself up with? So every day it's either a Bible verse, I'm in my word, I'm either in scripture, I'm either in worship music, or I'm even in self-development stuff, like motivational stuff, business stuff, whatever it is. That's what I'm putting into myself. So when I am being pressed, when I'm being pressured, the first thing that's going to come out of me, my reactionatory, my emotional stuff that's going to come out to me, is everything that I put into me. So if you're that person that's F-bombs are coming out, this and that's coming out, that's because that's what you've been putting into yourself for so long. And so the way to change that, so you're not that person cussing people out all the time, is you need to be very intentional about what you're putting into your mind, your body, your soul, and your spirit. The last thing is you have to be intentional about thinking about what you are thinking about. Like, let me break that down. You have to be intentional about thinking about what you're thinking about. What does that mean? Is like, you have to take captive every thought that comes to your mind. And this is a very, very difficult thing. I was talking to the pastor in my church last night, and he was talking about, he had heard an interview by Billy Graham, which, if you don't know who Billy Graham was one of the most notable figures for the Christian faith that's ever, lived, in my opinion. And so when Billy Graham was on a radio show a long time ago, he was asked a question like, man, you've been serving God your whole life. Like, how is it that you still sin? I mean, do you even still sin? He's like, of course I sin. And so the radio host was like, okay, well, tell me when's the last time you sinned. He's like, I sinned this morning. He's like, well, what did you do? He said, I saw a guy on the road and who needed help, and I kept driving. I didn't stop to help him out. He was like, I didn't even think to stop to help him out. And so some of you guys are probably listening like, okay, well, what's the big deal with that? The big deal is like, for him to even take captive that thought of not stopping to help this person out shows a place of maturity. Like, that is a crazy place of maturity, when you thought about the smallest little detail that every single one of us would have probably brushed over and not even thought about that day. For him, he thought about the smallest thing that day. Like, man, I didn't even think to stop to help this dude out. That's where I sinned at. That's a person who took captive everything that he was thinking about. And so for us as police officers, the way you prevent yourself from going off with somebody is like, when you're in a situation like that, you think about what you're thinking about. Like, man, I'm thinking about saying drop the effing weapon, but I probably shouldn't say that. So how should I say it better? Hey, man, can you do me a favor and drop that weapon? You know what I mean? That's how we start to get better. That's how we start to improve. Now, again, going back to the beginning of this podcast, we're still humans. I have made mistakes. I don't want y'all to think that I'm telling you to be perfect. I have made mistakes. I have cussed people out before in my job. You know what I mean? But looking back at it, I wasn't in a proper emotional state prior to utilizing or doing what I did. Therefore, when somebody pressed me, what came out was all the bad stuff that was already in me. So that's how we get better, and that's how we prevent ourselves from being that next viral video. Is you got to prepare yourself for when you do arrest that guy that killed the 5-year-old person. You got to think about what you're thinking about, saying, right now is not the time for me to go off. You got to prepare yourself. If you are the one that's pulling over this officer or this person that's suspected of driving a stolen vehicle, you got to think about what you're about to say to this person, especially if they're telling you otherwise. Think about what you're thinking about, and that's how you improve.
And also be aware of like who your coworkers are and like who your supervisors are. And I know that not everyone listening to this will really have that option, but I feel like a good amount will. Like Jones, my partner, he knows me. Like he probably knows me better than I know me, and I know him better than he knows himself. Meaning I know what buttons, if someone presses, like what reaction that they're going to get from him, and vice versa. So like, once again, we're all humans. And Jones multiple times has kind of like pulled me back because he's realized that I was getting worked up in situations. So you know, just beware of that as well, or like not beware, but like just be cautious of that as well. Or be aware, I guess is the phrase that I'm looking for, because it makes a difference as well. You know, like I've found myself getting cussed out and, oh, your wife looks pretty and I'm gonna find out where she lives and I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z to her and your son and blah, blah, blah. I'm looking at this person like, and my eye get to twitching, and then Jones comes in and puts himself in between us and he takes over the conversation. Like, hey, look, man, this is why we're here. You know, we got dispatch, blah, 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 blah. It just helps. It helps. You know? And like that's what we're here for. Like,
some of you guys may, sorry, I wanted to, before you go on, I wanted to hit that same subject. Some of you guys may not have the opportunity to have a partner like AJ does. In my current assignment, I have a partner. And my partner knows me very, very well now, like very, very well. And I'm so grateful for him, and I'm starting to know him well. But some of you guys may work in an agency like me, where if you're not in a special assignment, you're just by yourself. If that's you, don't worry. Take the time to get to know at least one person better on your shift. So that way, when that time does come, you can still have a relationship where you know this person really well. And so some of you guys may already do that, but I didn't want to brush that over for the person that says, well, I don't have a partner like Jones, or you can still do it. You just have to be more intentional about getting to know the people that you work with, so that way you can prevent them from putting themselves in a bad situation. We're human beings, and because we're human beings, you're going to react. It's not a matter of time. It's not a matter of if, but when. And so you have to be able to hold your partners accountable, so that way you're not the person just standing there on the sideline like, what do I do?
Yep. And I worked for a smaller department before I worked at the agency that I work now. And we worked one officer cars. I don't even think we ever rode two officers in the same car unless it was like a special event. But I was transparent with my coworkers, and like they were transparent with me. We hung out outside of work, and they got to know like who I was at the time and who I am, and vice versa. And more than likely, when someone's pushing your buttons, like you've been there for long enough that another officer's probably on his way or is already there. And you just want that officer to be that person that steps in like, okay, like this person is saying some reckless stuff. Like I could see that getting under AJ's skin, or I could see that getting under anyone's skin. Like, let me step in, give him a break. We can kind of tag team this, because at the end of the day, like our profession, like historically has been like a very prideful profession. Like you're not going to talk to me in uniform this way. You're going to respect me, or I'm going to force you to respect me. And that's cool. And it definitely gets results. But what we've learned over the past 2 years is, while it was getting us the results that we thought we wanted, it was also getting us results that we didn't want, which is a bad reputation. And what we're trying to tell you from experience is you could gain those same results and even more by not being that person. Like there's not one person, or very few people on either precincts that I have worked who don't know AJ's the nicest person in the world until you make him not be. And that's how it should be. Like, and even after that, right? Like if you watch the video where I punched that guy, what do? I put the shotgun away immediately. I grab him, put him in handcuffs, or he's already in handcuffs. I pick him up as I'm walking him back to the car. That's how fresh this is. He ain't even made it to the back of the car yet. I'm talking to him. Now, why would you do that? Why did you make me do that? And then I get him in the back of the car. We still talking. And then when I'm driving back to the substation, we're still talking. So by the time we get to jail, we're best friends. Like, you have to be that person. Like, not only will it make your job easier, it will make your job safer, and it will increase your lifespan. Like when you walk around with like this negativity and this weight that's just constantly weighing on you and you're constantly thinking about it, what do you think that's doing to your life?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what do you think your retirement's going to look like? Like when you retire, what do you think your retirement's going to look like? How is that affecting your family when you get home? How's that affecting your relationships with your loved ones, your friends, your associates? When you go to the gym and you're working out, when you're at the grocery store and you see somebody, like that stuff weighs on you. So you need to figure out a way to flip that switch. And I'm telling you right now, you'll get the same results. There ain't a person. Listen, I've had so many officers either indirectly reach out to me or say something to the effect of, why you dancing in uniform, man? You making us look soft. And you know why I don't care about that? Because everyone I work with knows. Oh yeah, I'll be soft. I'm the softest person in the world until you make me not be soft. I don't need to walk around and beat my chest and I'm not soft. Respect me. I'm not gonna dance. Like, that's not me. Like, those prideful days of our profession are over.
Yep.
And I hate to break it to you because I know some of you got in this profession to be that guy. You like being looked at as that authoritative figure. It's gone. Those days are gone. And if you refuse to accept that, you are going to have a very difficult profession. You're going to have a very difficult time in this profession. You're going to complain about everything. Like, I got hit with the scooter, tore my rotator cuff. I was off work for a year. BWC's fighting me for my time. Like, they didn't approve the surgery for 6 months. But you know what? It could have been worse, right?
Yep,
like, I'm not going to walk around with this negativity of, oh, I can't believe one person hit me with the scooter. Now the whole group's a bunch of scooter throwing MFers, right? Like, no, like, I'm not that guy. Like, I understand there were people down there for the right reasons. There were people down there for the wrong reasons. So, I don't know, man. It's just like, I see it time and time again. And like, even like these newer officers, like, they get in and it's just like, you know, they walk around with their chest barreled out and, you know, they put bass in their voice when they talk to people. And it's just like, you could get so much better results by just being yourself and talking to people like
you don't
humans.
need that. It's when we've talked about this before, and I'll wrap it up because we're going to wrap up this podcast right now, but you just got to have meekness. You got to have strength under control. It's one of your most valuable qualities and assets that you could ever possess as a police officer. If you can get that quality, you will have a very, very, very successful career because you will be able to control your emotions. That's who makes the best officer, is the officer that's able to control his emotions. During the times that he wants to punch somebody in the face, he's still delivering respectful service. When he needs to go ahead and throw fists to cuffs, he knows how to do it, but then he knows how to turn it right back off and treat this person like a human being. So, hey guys, this was definitely good to get back on. It's good to be back in the studio with my brothers. And again, I hated missing last week, but you know, I'm a father and I'm a husband before I'm anything else. And so I needed to be there for my family in one of our most trying times as a family of late. So I appreciate you guys. I respect you guys for rocking with us. And we got some good stuff coming up. We're going to have Officer Tatum on the podcast. Me and AJ did a podcast with him probably like 2 weeks ago, which was actually really good. So we're going to bring him on our podcast. So he was supposed to be on last week, but obviously with everything that happened, he wasn't. So we're going to have Tatum on. We're going to have 911 Strong on. I don't know if you guys follow him at all. So we'll have 911 Strong on. And then Nate's Wildland. I don't know if you guys know who Nate is. Nate is the officer
LeBron James.
Yeah, he got fired for the LeBron James post. And so it was actually good. I was on his podcast last night, and it was good to talk to him. It was good. And I even told him, and I even told him this on his podcast. I said, when you did that, I knew that you were definitely going to get in trouble for doing it. I was like,
I think we talked about it on the podcast.
We did.
I was like, he get fired.
Yeah, we did.
Like,
we did.
Word for word.
We did.
Get fired.
We did. And I told him, I was like, man, I knew you were gonna get in trouble for it, no doubt about it. But I told him, I was like, but what you did, it was ballsy and it took guts because you were bringing to light what was it's a reality. But you know, so we'll have.
I wonder if he knows that was my department.
What do you mean?
You know, that's the connection, right?
It was the knife incident, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll find out when we have him on. But that would be good.
Not to bring that up to him.
Yeah. But that would be good. So, but anyway, so yeah, we got a lot of good guests coming up soon. So we appreciate it. We're gonna start bringing back One Has to Go. So send those back to us. Like, somebody sent me one. It was a good one like a few days ago. So I can't find it. It was good, but I've been so just my mind's been all over the place. But we'll bring that back. So we're definitely got a lot of good stuff coming up for you guys as we approach the end of the year, man. Can you guys believe that, man? We are already in October. You know, time changes this month and
of 2021.
Man, that's crazy. It feels like we were just celebrating 2020. Everybody was so happy to get out of 2020.
Yeah.
I don't know. 21 has been much better, but you know.
What's scary is I've almost been, well, I shouldn't say almost, but I'm close to being out of school for 20 years. Out of high school.
Wow. Yeah, well, we both are because we graduated the same year.
Whew. Oh man. Yeah, that's us.
Golly, bro. Shoot. Yeah. So anyway, we coming. Did I tell our audience that I had COVID? I don't think I told our audience that I had COVID, huh? It's been a minute. Yeah, your boy had COVID. Yeah, I survived it.
I survived it.
I did. The only thing I had was loss of smell and taste, and I had body aches for like one morning in my legs, and that was it. But other than that, man, I was solid. So I was solid.
Wait, maybe we did talk about it because you talked about the blueberry muffin and your jalapeno chips.
I did. Why you gotta bring up old stuff, Billy?
Well, I can't forget that breakfast meal.
Billy's like, well, since I'm running 10 miles now, I gotta remind you that you did bring up the blueberry muffin.
Listen, Billy throw his Crocs in all-terrain mode and get after it.
You put on that back heel strap. That heel strap, be ready to go.
That 4x4, bro.
Yeah, 4x4. He running so fast you don't see him. You just hear
turbo. The turbo mode, bro. So you just hear.
Look, you can make fun of me, but I'm the most comfortable guy in the room.
Billy, I saw a picture online the other day or yesterday. You had some Crocs, and I almost screenshot it and sent it to the group. And I was like, I'm gonna give him a week off.
You should have give him a week off. Oh man, but hey y'all, we love you guys. Continue to keep up the good work. Yeah. Brandon, man, again, congratulations, bro. Go to that academy, kill it.
Yep.
If you haven't already, but man, make sure you do what you do. Be a representative. Don't let this job change you, man. The reason they hired you, they're hiring you for the person you are now, not the person you're going to become. So don't ever let this job change you. For all those that have been following our podcast, shout out to this girl named Kaylee. She's been following our podcast for a while. She just got a conditional offer to get hired. So a lot of you guys are doing great work. A lot of you guys are starting to get hired. Some of you guys, the tide is starting to turn. You guys been on the sidelines for a while, just saying, when is my turn? When is it my shot? And now you guys are getting that shot. So don't waste it. Don't waste an opportunity. Keep pushing, and make sure you guys continue to share and like this podcast. Give us those reviews. We love listening and we love watching and reading those reviews. So give us the reviews. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating so we can continue to climb these charts. So with that being said, we love y'all and we'll see y'all next week. Peace.